Ken, thank you, dude, so much, man, for taking time to sit down with me and talk on the depths of the melody. And it has been a wild ride for you in the band. You guys are
Yeah.
coming back with a third album, Beyond the Reach of the Sun, which is I want to be beyond the reach of the sun right now with this fucking heat. But which I can imagine with this new album coming out, you're super excited to get it out to the masses, dude. How are you doing?
We're doing great. Yeah, like it's been a long time in between records. So yeah, we're all kind of chomping at the bit to kind of get this thing released. So it's been a long wait. We've kind of been sitting on it for almost a year now too. So starting to get antsy, but getting excited that it's finally coming out.
Yeah, so okay, so the album's been done for a year. Wh- What may I ask, what made you wait a year to release it?
Well, it's basically just scheduling with the label pretty much. Finding the right time to release it. They've got obviously a lot of other bands they're working with too. So it's generally just the cycle. I think a lot of it has to kind of do with like the pressing plants and stuff like that. Like they take ages to kind of get shit done these days. It's mainly kind of mostly because of that. It's just a scheduling thing, right? So not obviously by our choice. Once something's done, you kind of want to have that thing
Yeah.
like released tomorrow, right? But it everything kind of works out the way it does.
Yeah, man.
Builds up the anticipation.
I always wondered how that worked, man, because I can imagine from your perspective, like, oh my God, it's done. Let's get it out here and the
Yeah.
waiting. I can imagine the feeling. But I gotta say, man, these singles that you have dropped, I read the comments, I look at everything, and it's so exciting to see. Like everybody's like, Ancients is back, and like they're dropping an album.
Yeah, like it seems like we've had pretty good response to the first two singles so far. You know, Maybe lots of people thought that we were kind of done. Like even myself at one point, you kind of sit and ponder whether it's worth it to continue or whether we still have the wind in our sails. But super happy that we have a good team kind of right now, and we're all kind of stoked to be back. So everyone's feeling good and excited to keep making new music.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, with your last album, dude, you won a Juno Award. And
Hmm.
then, but you said that you almost wondered if there was like still wind in your sails. Like, was there ever a time where you were thinking, explain to me, you almost didn't make this album?
Yeah, well there's, between like right before kind of Voice of the Void was recorded, I had my first child and my wife had complications. So
Mm,
she was in like intensive care for just over a month kind of deal, with some heart issues. So basically we made that record, but I was kind of focusing more so on getting her healthy and
mm,
raising my son properly. And like we did a few tours around the record, but all in all, it wasn't really as much as we had liked to. And then things just kind of kept compounding sort of on top of that. So, it was kind of getting harder and harder to get the guys together for writing sessions and stuff like that. And yeah, and then kind of COVID sort of happened, and then that added
ah,
another like, couple of years. So we've also had some lineup changes as well too. So there's kind of a whole laundry list of things where at one point you're kind of just I don't know really what the word is, but kind of feel depleted a little bit, and focuses kind of
yeah.
point to other
I
directions.
how
All
how
that being
is
said, though,
how's wife doing and kiddo?
Everything's great. Yeah, she's back and kicking ass. Like
Hell yeah.
it was a bit of a journey, like a couple years, kind of get her back to where she needed to be. But yeah, we're totally kicking ass now.
Fuck
So
yeah, dude.
yeah, I had always been kind of writing and having snippets, but like I was saying before, we were kind of finding it hard to get together. So we'd sort of take some ideas while we're in the room and develop them and kind of get something happening that we're stoked on. And then it would kind of be months before we'd see each other again. And you go back and it was kind of like starting fresh again. And after kind of doing that for a while, it's gets a little bit exhausting, I guess the
Yeah.
word would be, right? And hard to sort of keep that fire lit. So I actually moved away from Vancouver, where we were sort of based out of. So I'm kind of living 4 hours out of the city now. Um, and yeah, so we like once I moved up here, we kind of just had that spark sort of reignite, and we kind of all learned how to write remotely. So that's been kind of like a
Mhm.
huge game changer for us. You're not like working a 10-hour day and then having to drive an hour each way to practice, like exhausted. Like it's kind of helped us be able to sort of work at our own pace. And kind of we would just start projects together. And sometimes one of the guys in the band would send you something at 4 a.m. or so, something like that, right? Work. So it just made it easier that everyone could kind of pick their time to sort of work on things to build the foundations of the song. So that played like a huge role in kind of getting everyone excited again and motivated to kind of take things further.
Well,
So
dude,
yeah, it
I
was.
I think with like I said earlier, man, with you seeing the great reception of these singles you've
Mhm.
dropped, oh man, dude, it's got to feel. I can only imagine you kind of go through this like dark night of the soul where like life is hitting you 100 miles an hour. You want to make music, but like
Yeah.
you got other things that are obviously more important to take care of. And but for you guys to get this kind of reception back and the love, I mean, you guys are phenomenal. Like you guys are a great group of amazing musicians, man. And you are super talented. And so I bet it's
Thank you so much.
encouraging.
Yeah, well, it's definitely nice to, get a response the way that we have been. It's kind of always like you have, not that it really matters because all in all, it's like when we're writing music, or me personally, I can speak for myself, it's a very selfish thing. Um, it
Yeah.
it's I'm not necessarily like trying to please other people as I'm writing. I'm mostly trying to please myself and my
Yeah.
bandmates. Like we all need to feel stoked. But on the other side of that, when you're working with a label, like it's pretty important that other people enjoy it too, right? So there's kind of like that pre-release anxiety you go through, like leading up to the first single coming out. Like, are people gonna think this is shit? Or
Yeah.
it's kind of just, but I try my best just not to worry about that kind of thing. It's just, all in all, we're writing tunes to make us stoked, right? And
Yeah.
if the reaction's good, like, it definitely makes us happy.
Hell yeah, man. And
Yeah.
how did so your wife's brother was also a guitar player. How did Ancients
Mhm.
come together?
Um, well, we three of us, like Boone, our old bass player, Chris, the guitarist, and myself, we played in another band that was like a party rock, kind of like Turbo Negro sort of
Mm,
style, three guitar band, and we rehearsed like crazy in that band, like three nights a week, um, like an hour from our homes, sort of thing, right? So
Wow.
pretty regimented, and that kind of like fell apart. Like it, it was a super fun band to be in, but it wasn't necessarily like my favorite vibe of music. Like I
Hmm.
had a blast playing it, and it was fun, but so when that kind of ended, the three of us, well, I particularly just started actually writing because I didn't really write that much for that band. I kind of joined that band later on, and when it dispersed, me and Boone and Chris sort of just kept jamming. So we just kind of kept that regiment going and started working on, some music that I had been writing. So like when Ancient started, like we were still in that sort of regime and like working on these songs. Like we had been kind of rehearsing for a year and a half, 2 years before we sort of played even our first show or even
Hmm.
announced that we were established. I think that kind of helped us like create somewhat of a buzz because we sort of came out of the gate like we had already been an established band for 2 years. So it's,
Hmm.
that's one suggestion I might have for some younger bands is, um, try and hone the craft before you put yourself out there, right? Like obviously if you're a really young kid, like experience is experience, but you know, try and get that your skills sort of honed in and feeling tight. And I think it kind of helps when you eventually bring it to the public.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So yeah, that's basically sort of what birthed this band was just the death of the other band. And we actually started with the drummer from Spread Eagle as well for the first kind of couple jams, but I don't think like the sort of progressive metal kind of vibe was his thing. So I remember we tried out maybe 5 or 6 different drummers and landed with Mike, our current drummer. This was like within the first 3 months of us starting to jam.
Hmm.
And Mike, like I was maybe like my late 20s at the time, and our drummer was like he wasn't even like of age yet. I think he was 18 or something when he came in. So yeah, this Billy the Kid. But no, he was amazing, right? And a total kind of sponge and great dude. So once we kind of had him in the drummer seat, then from there we basically just had a good chemistry of guys and took it from there. So that was basically the birth of the band in short.
Yeah, hell yeah. And what what's the name Ancients? Is there like a special meaning to it, or is it just it looks good, like written down?
Yeah. Funny thing about that is like we had a laundry list of names and like with our close friends, I think it was on like a Facebook thread and we would just kind of invite or made like a group message of people that like metal music that were
Hmm.
kind of close friends to us, and we sort of had a list of names, and we basically just did sort of tally, and that's sort of how Ancients. We never had the two eyes before. It was the single eye. Um, and yeah, so we chose the name that way. So we were kind of going with the one eye when we first started. So if you have some of our like original merch
It has the
or
one eye.
like our first Snakebeard EP had a single eye as well. And then there was another band, I think maybe in Nashville or something like a metal band that was going by Ancients as well. So when we kind of signed the Season of Mist just to avoid any bullshit, we just added that extra eye. It kind of, the cool thing about that is if you were to like Google or look up ancients, the actual word, you're gonna get a whole whack of stuff, ancient Egypt or whatever it may be. But with the two eyes, it kind of brings you directly to
It
us, right? So I think it helps us that way, and it makes our logo perfectly symmetrical.
Dude, I was looking at it
Yeah,
and I was like, what's the
yeah,
significance of the two eyes? So that's brilliant.
yeah, yeah,
It re
yeah. So nothing super crazy behind it, but yeah,
yeah. This album art, man, is sick. Really
yeah,
sick.
it is.
Like wh I can see people walking into a record store and seeing this crazy looking cosmic deity or whatever, like badass. What's this tell me about this.
Well, sort of like lyrically, I had the general kind of concept. Um, it's kind of like a sci-fi story almost that, it's just a metaphor for other things or just a way to kind of talk about personal things, but in a
Yeah.
broader spectrum.
I
But
love concept albums, man.
yeah, so we contact Adam Burke at Nightjar Illustrations. I had been because we had our friend Allison do the last two records, and she did an amazing job. But us and the label, like it had been so long since our last record, and I think like the sound of this record, it has some of like the classic sounds that we, are known for, but I think it has like a lot more um dynamic, I guess, and focuses more on like the hard rock side. Like it still has crushing parts, but it's not like Voice of the Void was kind of hammering all the way. Like this record, like with the lineup we have now, I think we've given the songs like a lot more sort of room to breathe in sections. And
Mm.
with that being said, like lots of the parts are more right to the point. So long story short, the music kind of sounded different, and I had sort of this theme of this like celestial tyrant sort of thing, and you know this sort of society that was taken over by this space demon, whatever you want to call it.
Hell yeah.
And so I was looking through artists, and yeah, Adam Burke's art just was like amazing looking to me. Like total sort of Lord of the Ringsy kind of crazy sci-fi. Like some of this stuff was just sort of mind blowing. So I just reached out to him, and he was willing to take a crack at our record. So I just basically sent him sort of the basic outline of what kind of concepts we wanted on the album. And I remember like, yeah, when he just sent the rough sketch back to me, it's holy shit. Like he actually absolutely nailed it out of the park. So yeah, we're beyond stoked about it.
Hell yeah, dude. And again, man, I love that I love when you can create a story to where like all the songs they have their own they have their own message, but they all flow together, which that's what it sounds like
Mhm.
with this new album.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, it's like all of the songs kind of follow some sort of storyline that goes in and out of one another and has
Hmm.
some kind of theme. Like, but it's kind of just a story that's a vessel for other things, right? This is like my first like Chris used to help a lot with writing lyrics. So this was sort of the first record that I took all of that on my own. So that was kind of the way that was helping me like, get some ideas across that weren't in like a total blatant way or, like just a way to kind of tell a story without sounding corny.
Mm, yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of, what helped me get through the lyric writing process of this record.
If you could share this, what's one song on this record that you're like you're very excited for people to hear?
It's always kind of so hard to pick this kind of
Yeah.
stuff, especially like, I don't know. I can talk about other people's music a lot easier for some reason.
Hmm.
But there's a track on the record called "Is It Your God?" I think it's the third track, it's quite different, like in sections from anything we've done before. Like, I don't know, like we had a guest keyboard player for the first time. He played on like 5 tracks. Our friend Justin Hagberg, he plays in 3 Inches of Blood.
Okay,
Have you
yeah.
heard of them before?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I sent him kind of the demo, like we were just sort of discussing that we'd like to have him, and he said it's kind of like a mix between Soundgarden and Yes. But it has some crushing metal parts, especially the ending. But it's like it's quite a wild ride. So yeah, that one probably one of the top ones I like. And also the next single we're releasing in a I think on the 24th of this month, called "In the Absence of Wisdom." The music was mostly actually written by our new guitarist Brock. Well, he's not actually so new anymore.
Yeah.
I think he joined back in 2015 or something like that, when Chris left. But yeah, it's a wicked song. It's kind of has like a Alice in Chainsy sort of vibe to it.
Hell yeah, dude.
But yeah, it I hear sort of not blatantly, but like a lot of sort of the '90s grunge mixed in there, at least like vocal melody wise. Yeah, I think there's a lot of that on this record, and I hope people can enjoy it.
Well, that's
Um,
been a big influence on you. That style of music. I mean, Nirvana was like one of your favorite bands.
it what like when I was first learning guitar, like 'cause I'm a right-handed person, but I play guitar left-handed,
Yeah.
and like I remember as a kid, like being 7 or something, like trying to play guitar the regular way, and this is total shit. Like I can't
Yeah.
do it, right? And then yeah, when I was like 12, I think I got like my first Nirvana CD, and I realized that he was playing left-handed. So I had this like shitty acoustic that I think like was bought for my little brother in the closet, and it had like 2 strings on it. So I just started learning on that guitar upside down with 2 strings, and because of Nirvana, right? And it felt a lot more natural, sort of have my strong hand on the fretboard. But anyway, so yeah, and like my formative years as like getting stoked on music and learning guitar was all that kind of scene music. It was, maybe quite a handful of years later than when that music was actually the most popular music going.
Hmm.
So I was late to the party, but yeah, it played a big role sort of in the formative kind of years of learning. So for nostalgia purposes, I've actually been kind of listening to quite a lot more of that old stuff I used to listen to, like a lot of Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and stuff like that, um, leading up to this record.
Hell yeah.
So I think it kind of bled its way in.
Well, I did notice, man, on the singles, man, the tone that you captured, right? Because your vocals, dude, I'm a vocal guy. I I need good vocals to listen to a
Yeah,
album, right? And like the music can be amazing, but if the vocals are not hitting, it's tough. And
yeah.
phenomenal, man. Seriously, like I love the cleans, I love the growls, everything. But I noticed with some of the tone that you captured with the guitar, it wasn't
Hmm.
that there was a heavy high distortion drive. It was more
Hmm.
like a more beefy crunch. And
Yeah,
I noticed listening, like I'm like, okay, these guys are heavy. There is a heavy, but it's not like high drive heavy.
yeah. Like I think like even from the start of this band, like you can kind of hear it a lot more on like Heart of Oak. We've always wanted to kind of have more of a organic sound to like say the guitars and the drums and stuff too. Like So I notice sometimes, like if I'm just cruising or something, and I like put like serious liquid metal on or something, like all of that stuff kind of sometimes starts to sound the exact same, like it's kind of cut from the same, like everyone's using the same plugins or the same triggers, and it kind of just starts to sound like it's pumped out of a factory. So I've always kind of wanted to more so have like a rock sound, but still crushing at the same time, right? So that's sort of what we're trying to achieve. I don't know if we accomplish it all the time, but that's sort of what we're going for is more of like a, organic sound. Like especially I think drum wise, like we try and not go too thick on like the sampling or the triggers, right? Like try and get as much out of our natural sound out of the drums as we can. And I think that attributes to a lot of what our records sound like
Yeah,
in the end.
I picked as I was listening, I was like, these guys are heavy, but the tone and I see what you mean, like with these two singles, man. But like, yeah, they sound amazing. How has this album changed you?
Ah, I don't know. Like that's a tough question. Like I know like we spoke earlier about this whole, you know, plethora of bullshit that kind of went on. Like I've never really been like a super depressed person
Hmm.
in my life or not necessarily noticed it, but kind of looking back like through all that stuff to like where I'm at now in my headspace as opposed to then, like it's pretty drastic, the change, I'd say. And I think like this record sort of had a lot to do with it. Like once we finally started working on it and like getting somewhere with the songs, like, we were making advancements on a daily basis. Like, I would save something and it would be to the other guys, and then all of a sudden I'd have something back, and things were kind of steamrolling. And there was like a period of time where that kind of wasn't happening, right? And music's been like a pretty big part of my life, so for it to kind of be like halted all of the sudden and not functioning how it had previously, I think it was, I wouldn't say made me depressed, but kind of in a funk. So I think kind of just the making of this record and like feeling that spark again and like, the the sort of the release of, all that crap that's sort of built up. I think it kind of you just shovel it out sort of into music. Um so once we actually had the demos and like the recording date set, is like everything just kind of, leveled out. We're kind of back to normal, like how things used to be. So, you know, I would say it kind of, if it changed me in any way, it just sort of broke me out of that funk of, trying to think of what the word is. I guess I would relate it to like self-doubt, right? Because you kind of get into this funk and you stop creating. Sometimes it's hard to get back on that bicycle and feel like you can accomplish something that's worth anything, right? So I think, once I kind of just let all that bullshit go and just started creating and making music again, it sort of erased that funk. Long story long.
No, man. Pe
Yeah.
People need to know this about these artists and bands that they like because it's so easy to talk about like, you know, the high points, but people love authenticity, and
Hmm.
you can feel that in music.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
you can feel that in your music as well. And there's a there's a special touch and this will be the third time I said it, but you can go back and look at your singles and read. I know that when you create music, it's for yourself. This is a
Hmm.
almost therapeutic process of pouring this thing that's deep inside of you out and making sound. But when you allow people into that space to hear it and they go, damn.
Yeah, it's a nice feeling for sure. You know, it would suck to put it out there and people hate it, but on the other hand, like if it made you feel some sort of way and you enjoyed making it, I guess it's still a win, right? But
Hell yeah.
yeah, like the fact that people like it it makes it, exciting, I guess is the word.
Absolutely, man.